The year 1995 was a pretty monumental moment for video games. The PS1 had just released worldwide, and with its meteoric rise to fame, Sony used it as a slipstream to further propel the company into household name status. Sony had a pretty uphill battle ahead of them, of course, and to set themselves apart from the competition, the PS1 needed to be kinda weird.
It's called mental wealth.
I think I found my new Discord name with this one.
We have a normal, healthy young man. And here we have a fellow who's been experimenting with PlayStation for only a few minutes.
Now, the general strangeness of the PS1 didn't just stop at the commercials. It applied to the games as well. And yet, I never grew up with a PS1. That console was maybe a little before my time. But I did play a single game for the original PlayStation in my youth. So, where do I even start with this? And I had a good intro going and everything, but whatever, well I guess we'll just keep going. So this is obviously not the original box art to whatever this game is. Written by probably a 5 to 9-year-old me on ancient paper towels. Probably like 15-year-old paper towels. I couldn't even like read or draw anything at that time, or not draw, obviously, I could barely draw now. I couldn't write anything, I didn't know how words worked back then. I barely do now, but you know, whatever. The original case to this game was lost well before my time. I asked my dad about it, figured out where he got this game from, and the most likely culprit was probably either a Blockbuster video rental store, or like Hollywood rentals or something like that. Which, yeah, do you feel old yet? Despite not having any internet or anything, you know, during that time in my life, I wanted to make box art for a game that I randomly discovered inside of some, like, old CD binder. One of those, like, old leather-bound ones, you know, where you just put discs that don't have any cases in them. Had a spare case lying around. I wanted to give it its own case, because this game was weirdly important to me. What was a pretty fun video game experience for my dad ended up being formative memories for me. One of the things I like saying nowadays is, oops, that's a formative memory when it regards to anything nostalgia related for people, because you just never know what happens, right? Naturally, I didn't know what the original box art for the game looked like, but as it turns out, I really wasn't that far off. Three years after the debut of the original PlayStation, Wild 9 came out. This game is a 2.5D platformer that had, well, less than stellar reviews. Is that because the game was bad? Maybe a secret underrated gem? Was it maybe ahead of its time? Well, I'd argue no. Wild 9 is weird. Wild 9 was developed by Shiny Entertainment and published by Interplay Productions. If those names sound familiar, yeah, they're the Earthworm Jim guys. Despite me never owning a PS1 ever in my life, I'm sure plenty of you know by now that I did have a PS2. It's because of the PlayStation 2's backwards compatibility, a feature so good it puts backwards compatibility in other consoles to shame even nowadays, that I was even able to play Wild 9 in the first place. That being said, I've still yet to beat this game, like, period. I've got to the final level once throughout my entire time playing this game, on and off since I was a kid. The real reason for that is because, well, the PS2 can still run PS1 games. What it's far less capable in doing is loading save files. You needed a PS1 memory card, and my parents never just ended up getting one ever. By the time I happened across a PS1 memory card, you know, sometime later in the future, the thought never occurred to me to return to Wild 9, and I still don't know why. Don't worry, this is a problem I plan to rectify by the end of this video, but I think it does go to show you that even the circumstances surrounding playing this game are just as weird as the game itself. On that note, the other anomalous thing I can talk about regarding this game is the third studio that helped make it.
Tommy Tellerico Studios.
Tommy Tellerico Studios more specifically, its CEO, Tommy Tallarico, is a hot mess. Allegedly, anyways. Let me just come forth here and say that I don't necessarily have the time to go into, you know, the entire backstory of Tommy or anything. Just understand that he's a pretty deplorable human being, allegedly. Lists of his capital E exploits include generally acting ugly to anybody and everybody that disagrees with him, utilizing Kickstarter or Kickstarter-adjacent websites to basically steal everybody's money, and a customs debacle, read structuring. I don't have time for it here. And that's really only to name a few here. Allegedly. If you have about, oh, I don't know, 2 hours to burn, then there's a really good video by HBomberGuy going over everything that Tommy is. I know you'd see it says robloxoof.mp3, but it's mostly about Tommy, I promise. Those two topics end up being pretty related in any case. And trust me when I say, despite the intimidating runtime of this video, you hardly notice the time go by. It's fun, funny, well-made, and also insane, so if you want to watch it, it'll be linked in the description down below. Allegedly. Okay, I'm done, sorry. I know I didn't have to explain any of this before the video properly started, but if I didn't say it now, it was gonna bother me, so here it is, I guess. If nothing else, I keep getting copyright issues with this video because of the music in Wild 9, so that's certainly not doing him any favors in my book. I'm sure his mother is very proud.
They're literally gaming racists.
And it's due to all these reasons, as well as many more, that I'm not going to monetize this video. I don't know if the copyrighted content is really going to have an effect on a video that is not monetized or anything, so if y'all could do me a solid, you know, like, subscribe, ring the bell, share it, you know, whatever, YouTuber stuff, that'd be great. Don't have to if you don't want to, though, I'm not your dad. Bro, just play the game already. Yeah, I know, Jesus wept, I'm working on it. Alright, level 1, Bombopoilis, let's get it. Hey guys, how come my pee is blue? So this is probably not what you were expecting to a first level in a video game. Might be wondering now, where is our intro? You know, where is our setup for this story or anything? The answer to that will come later, just don't worry about it for now. For the time being, I will tell you that our main character here is named Wex Major, which is probably the most 90s name I've ever heard, and he wields possibly the most unique weapon I've ever seen in a video game. This is the Rig. It's a powerful electricity throwing device that allows you to weaponize slapstick comedy in order to defeat enemies. Although most people now probably think to that one Avengers scene, the puny god scene.
I am a god!
Oh yeah, also, when it runs out of rechargeable ammo, it farts. Not only is the Rig our ticket into most of the combat in this game, it's also utilized for puzzle solving, as well as platforming. Instead of having a conventional wire grappling hook or something, your electricity turns green and starts yanking you around all over the place. It's messy and kinda hard to control, but it's made like that intentionally, which I kind of appreciate. The Rig being unwieldy is a trait you're gonna see anytime you use this thing, for any reason at all. The puzzle solving aspect I'm saving for a little bit later. So instead, let's talk about this first level. Where even are we? I don't think it's crazy to say that this is a lot to take in. I guess we're on some sort of airship or something, overlooking these desiccated crop fields. That's the best I can gather. Wait, I said desiccated, not desecrated. One thing this level does do is help this game stand out. And by a wide margin too, I'd argue. It's certainly no Mario 1-1 grassy field or anything to that effect. Visually striking, maybe a little bit overwhelming. And once again, it's kinda weird. It's not the only time I'm gonna say that, by the way, just a fair warning. Oh, and speaking of warnings, if you're an individual who finds himself particularly squeamish, like notably squeamish, this game and this footage probably isn't the best for you to watch. If you wanna know what I'm talking about, Exhibit A. Well, that was horrifying. Now, let me start off by saying that the tagline for this game is "Torture your enemies." This is a selling point to Wild 9. This is also what I was referring to when I said puzzle solving. The rig can carry enemies, it can throw them around in junk. Sometimes you need to throw them into awful, horrible machinery, or just traps and stuff. There's all kinds of things like this in the game. Sometimes you can do it just if you want to, and the game rewards you practically regardless. It's hard to get continues and extra lives in this game, but one of the ways you can get an extra continue is by increasing the torture percentage to every enemy you come across to 100%. I don't know how the math for this particular mechanic is counted at all, and there's hardly any information regarding this game on the internet as it stands, but what I can tell you is that Wild 9 continues to innovate on this mechanic the longer you play it. You will find new ways to torture your enemies. Some are required and some aren't, obviously. Nonetheless, you're incentivized to commit pretty heinous acts to these thankfully non-human characters, which is obviously sadistic. And being 10 years old when I first played this game, I didn't really know how to react to this. I don't think I did. This particular aspect of the game completely eluded me until I got back in it. Not for this session or this revisiting or anything, but only a couple years later down the line. More like preteens or something, and that's when I realized how horrifying this all is. So during that time, not only was I old enough to comprehend just how horrible this was, I believe it was also during that time that I ended up getting an irrational fear for industrial-sized grinders, which, thank you for that, Wild 9. I've mostly grown out of it now, but if I ever work a production job again, I'm gonna stay away from any giant shredders or anything of that sort. Trust me, this is not a bit. And don't worry, I plan to unpack more childhood trauma as this game goes on. In case you were wondering, this game is rated T for teen. I don't know what else to say here. It was a different time, maybe, is a good start. So this guy's hanging from the ceiling. His name is Volstagg, and apparently we know him and we have to save him. Sure, I guess. Nothing the rig can't handle. Yeah, sure, just go ahead and lead the way. I don't know where we're going. Oh. And there he goes, just like that. I think I have some explaining to do. So, that was the first level of Wild 9. How we feeling? Are we all confused? So where's the story, where's the setup? The PS1 was possibly the very last era where the game's story wouldn't necessarily be regulated to the game. Instead, you would find it in the manual. By now, video game manuals are a pretty long-dead art form, unfortunately. Which sucks because some of them were pretty cool. They acted as nice companion pieces to the game itself. When you purchased a game brand new, it often made the game plus the manual a sort of complete package. Personally, my favorite is the one from the first Sly game. It was a little MacGuffin booklet thingy, that was important to that game. And I don't know, it felt like it was cool owning a piece of that universe. Other games would give you like entire posters, or if you play a GTA, it would be like the map of wherever GTA you were playing. It was cool. Some of the consoles that came out with these games, though, weren't quite powerful enough to have like a full cutscene to explain the premise. So instead, the story would be in these little booklets. The PS1 mostly did away with this, in many games' case, but Wild 9, as well as a handful of other PS1 titles, acted as notable exceptions to this. So let's talk context. Don't worry, I'll be quick about it. There's not like a ton of information to gather here about the game on its manual, but what is here does serve well enough. This first little bit here, what I assume to be the intro to the game, consists of 4.5 pages on this tiny booklet, which is kinda crazy. There's a lot of words here, and I'll leave them up on screen if you want to read it, but if you don't, then I'll just summarize real quick. Wex is the leader of the resistance group referred to as the Wild 9. This band of strange misfits have one singular goal: stop the tyrannical, maniacal Karn, and save the galaxy. It's pretty simple stuff. Before the first level even starts, Wex gets blindsided by the first attack on their base, an ambush. Karn's forces lay waste to the Wild 9's HQ, and proceed to capture every other member of the Wild 9. The only ones left standing are the guy who controls the ship, his name is Pilfer, Wex, and Angus. I'll admit this intro here has a lot of fluffy dialogue, but it does a really good job at giving you some second-hand characterization for the rest of the members of the Wild Nine. It's good at painting a mental picture. And I can imagine a slightly different Wild Nine, one where its budgets were, thrown in different directions, and maybe this intro could have instead been a cool, pre-rendered CGI cutscene or something. A decently high-energy intro to, the first level, which is, I think, supposed to be more chaotic than it actually feels like. And the real reason I sort of cold opened the actual gameplay segment of this video was because this is all the context you get. It's just Bombopoilis. And that's not necessarily to suggest that the context is all that important, really. This isn't some 60-hour RPG or anything like that. But I do think it's one of those product of the time sort of things that you'll see more and more of as you continue to play Wild 9. At least the manual has some personality, though. I like this fake instruction segment here in the very beginning of the book. It not only recommends you to order a pizza, but also buy Wild 9 3 times. That's just kind of funny. I also like this bit. The rig isn't only good for killing enemies, it's also invaluable for moving stuff around that's too heavy to lift. Oh, sure, you can also use it to move enemies around, too. I wonder what would happen if you threw an enemy into... What I find genuinely invaluable about this manual, though, are these little character bios of the members of Wild 9. Your goal in this game is obviously to defeat Karn, but also you need to save each of your friends. Anytime you play a regular platforming level in Wild 9, you'll have this segment where you team up with another member. And don't worry, most of them are cool. Volstag's was kinda lame, he was only there for about 10 seconds. But we did save him already, so maybe let's just take a look at what he has to say real quick. Volstagg is the apparent strongman of the group. At one point being a normal-looking prince, whatever that might mean in this universe, who was experimented on by Karn's forces. Now he has the strength of, and I quote, 3 silverback gorillas, and the agility of a gazelle. That sounds terrifying. Volstagg was also the prince to some sort of kingdom, probably on a far-off planet. After he eventually broke free from his, wherever he was being kept after being experimented on, he went back to his home and found it destroyed by Karn. Which, man, that's kinda compelling. I wish he showed up more than once in the game. Actually did something than, move whatever this flying contraption is, but whatever. These character bios are just awesome, honestly. Each member of this goofy little group is interesting, kind of insane, and just full of character. So from here on out, as soon as we find a new member of the Wild 9, I will introduce them using information I find in the booklet. Maybe it'll give you a fuller picture on what these characters are supposed to do. And don't worry, I do plan to go over Wex and Angus's backstory here as well. But for now, let's move on to level 2, the Gulag.
Welcome to the Gulag.
Wex, are you gonna make a habit of crashing your jet bike thingy? So the Gulag has a lot going on. It simultaneously has some of the best stuff, or at least some of my favorite stuff, in the game, but also it's where the cracks start to show a little bit. The whole thing I went to tirade on earlier, the stuff where you, torture your enemies and use the enemies by slamming them into traps or whatever to disable them, this doesn't always work, and sometimes it's just straight up annoying. For instance, anytime fire is involved in a level, it's some of the worst environmental hazard design in the game. The enemy shock troopers, the regular fodder you've been fighting your entire time so far, don't have like a ton of health. 4 slams using the rig is enough to kill them. Easy, right? Fire acts as it should, burning enemies and causing damage over time until their health drops to 0, in which case they'll explode like normal. And a shock trooper's health will deplete very, very fast while they're on fire. If you're trying to turn off a flamethrower, well, I hope you don't miss, because you'll need to go back if you do. Which, yeah, annoying, but not the end of the world. What is notably worse, however, is when you have to do platforming while disabling these traps. The Gulag's actual environmental trap gimmick, if you were to ask me, are these spike pits. They're very Wild 9 coded, if that's even a term. You throw an enemy into the pit and they become a platform so that you don't, shank yourself. Again, this is fine, I don't have a problem with this. The real issue is when you have an enemy, and you have to very delicately move them across a level in order to sufficiently disable that trap. This is made harder than it should be because the rig, again, is pretty unwieldy. If you're trying to hold an enemy completely still, they flop about all over the place, and this means that you can accidentally slam them in walls, and there goes, 1 health that they have. Slam an enemy 4 times in a row, and oops, you have to go back to a respawn point, an enemy respawn point, so you can grab another one and try again. It flips the initial hook of this game on its head, and instead turns it into a problem you have to deal with. And this is where I think most people will start to notice that problem in the Gulag. Specifically because I'm pretty sure in this room right here, you can actually get softlocked if you kill too many enemies without, actually completing the puzzle, quote-unquote. At least I'm fairly certain I softlocked myself on accident. It involved something along the lines of throwing the enemy too far, no longer being able to grab him, and oh, I couldn't get back to the respawn point, so I had to jump on the spikes over and over again, waste a life, and then try it again. Which, yeah, whoops. Which torture puzzle is deemed good or not is entirely dependent upon who's playing. You might like one, your friend, if they happen to play this game, might not like the same one. Individual little problems, and it can make the game feel a little bit inconsistent in terms of platforming and puzzle design. While some of these poorly designed puzzles are pretty infuriating, I have good news for you. You can just get over it. I don't mean like circumvent it or cheese it or anything. I mean literally just be okay with it eventually. They're never really all that long, it's fine. Suffer through it for about 2, maybe 3 minutes, and then you never have to touch it again. And no, trust me, I get it. I wish I had better advice for you other than suck it up, Buttercup, but that's it, really. Fun at the best of times, infuriating at the worst of times, but ultimately, none of them are all that long. Although I will admit, if there was a first level for you to get stuck on, I guess it would make sense for it to be a prison planet, because yeah, that's what the Gulag is. An entire planet being a prison is a cool concept if you ask me. And obviously, with the security being as high as it's presumed to be, whichever member is stashed here must be pretty dangerous. Also, yes, if you have particularly good musical memory, you probably noticed, the music used for the Gulag is just the main menu theme. I'm gonna assume this is for the same reason that there's no FMV cutscene or anything, PS1 storage space and or development time. Not gonna complain though, it's probably the best song on the OST anyway, so hey. Oh yeah! So if y'all thought Blue Pea was weird, I've got news for you. Hospital. After collecting enough energy in a platforming level, the rig will become red. This is, honestly, I'm not making this up, referred to as red mode. What does red mode do? Not a lot, honestly, but it looks really cool. Obviously, for starters, it changes the beam color. When you pick up an enemy or anything with the rig now, it'll have this sort of fire effect, and despite enemies using their panic scream sound effect when you're using the red rig, it doesn't actually do like fire damage or anything, which is genuinely a good thing. It also changes noise now, and the noise is much cooler, so, it's just all brownie points so far. What's the actual point of getting a red rig? Well, there isn't one necessarily. The rig turning red is simply a visual indicator for it maxing out. As you collect energy orbs, the length of the beam will increase, as well as allowing you to fire the beam for longer without having to let go of the square button. Never ever strictly necessary, but I mean, it's cool. It's sort of a per-level goal you can aim for if you want to. Interesting thing to note, the only time you get energy from an enemy is when you slam them 4 times. Using environmental traps or sub-weapons on them will not have them yield any energy whatsoever. I'm assuming the torture percentage goes up higher if you're using anything other than the rig, so it's a little bit of weighing your pros and cons there. But the red rig is just cool. I liked it so much that I ended up making it my, fan interpretation of the box art. That's why the electricity beam is red, because I thought the red rig was cool.
Help me out of here, Wex!
I don't know why, but this moment right here composes the single strongest resonant memory I have with this game. Nitro calling for Wex's help while he's still trapped in the cell, only barely audible because PS1 sound mixing, this weird afterimage effect which I don't think I can properly describe other than saying I imagine this is what rage is supposed to be like internalized as, and I want to see it in another game so bad. And the top of Nitro's cell being this weird circle you can walk all the way in and collect an extra life in. It's just, the glass is cool, and I think this is where my fascination for glass has sort of started. I've been thinking about talking about this specific point for this specific video for actual years at this point, and even though I'm here now, I still don't know how I could properly describe it. There's just something really strongly resonant with me here. Anyways, Nitro is a human nuke. In Karn's quest to take over the galaxy, he needed a weapon. A bioweapon. Powerful enough to destroy anything in his way. So naturally, he settled on a kid that was allergic to everything. Most notably, chocolate for some reason. But the rest of the members of the Wild Nine took a liking to him and decided to recruit him. Nitro wears a protective suit that defends him from any and all incoming damage. The trade-off for this is that he can't walk anywhere. As Wex, you'll have to use the rig to carry Nitro around. Doing so will always result in him exploding shortly thereafter. Don't worry though, this segment is stupid easy. Any damage that would have come your way, if Nitro is in between you and an enemy, their attacks will just bounce off of him. And as an added bonus, Nitro's explosions never do any damage to you. We're moving in the right direction here with regards to Wild 9 character personalities having a presence in the game itself. But there's still more to talk about, and ultimately, Nitro really can't do much on his own, so I don't blame this segment for being short necessarily. So I got a quick question for y'all. We've seen Wex's weird airbike thingy at least twice now, but have you ever wondered, can I actually pilot that? Let's start the next level, Light Armada. This is the first of a handful of jet bike levels. They mostly serve as nice set PC distractions from the regular gameplay, but they're not without some depth. If you're worried about potentially coming across some sort of end of the level or something, don't worry about that here. These levels always pull that good old infinite looping level trick, which means no, you're not timed or anything. The goal here is as easy as taking out a scout ship, that's all you gotta do. The method by which to do that is facilitated by using missiles. Standard missiles are the most common type you'll see throughout any jetbike level. To fall in line with the messy movement of main combat options in Wild 9, steering left or right will not only move the jetbike but also move the rocket. It is extremely easy to miss your shots here, which is never a huge issue, just get a handle for it is all I'm saying. If you want some free damage though, use the homing rockets. You don't get the ability to control them, and they just home in on enemies. Pretty by the books, but I mean, you know, they work. Just make sure you don't collide with anything like ankle high when you're going about these levels. Doing so will result in you losing some health. Hitting anything slanted though will end up bumping you up into the air. This will basically just nuke your turn speed, although Wex seems to be having a good time anytime he does it. And I mean, yeah, that's kind of it for the first jetbike level. Certainly not very complicated, but I mean, hey, they're good fun. Well, this level feels like tonal whiplash. Allow me to raise my hand for the class here and ask, why does Craterscape look like a post-apocalyptic version of Earth? All you Kirby 64 fans can kiss my ass. Your theories about Shiverstar Galaxy secretly being Earth? Nah, fuck that. Give me Craterscape Earth theories. Except for no, actually, this game takes place in the Andromeda Galaxy, which is a neighboring galaxy to our own, so this is not Earth. Which, I have nothing to say for that other than... Craterscape is particularly notable for being a very, very, very long level, as well as containing some of my earliest childhood traumas, so this is gonna be fun to talk about. For starters, the music in this level starts off really genuinely scary. It does turn into a proper headbanger not long into the song, but man, that initial sting is just striking. That timing was perfect. And yeah, I mean, that goes for the entire OST at this point, right? Say what you will about Tommy Tellerico or Tommy Tellerico Studios, when it comes to music, they knock it out of the park every time. But that's not all in terms of fear factor. Let it be known, there's no other level like this in the game. I don't know why the tonal shift. It comes off as a weird exception to every other level in the game, and no, I don't get it. I will say, however, at least every level so far has been really, really visually unique. Gameplay-wise too, actually. I don't know why this is the case, but the entire level that is Craterscape tilts back and forth the entire time you're playing it. This does, in fact, have the potential to mess up some of your jumps, and it can get kind of annoying if you're trying to move from, like, one floor to another floor, such as in the case of, like, these apartment buildings or whatever, but it does make the whole environment seem a lot more desolate, and, I mean, there's value in that, I think. On a semi-related note, we actually have some new enemies in this level. 2 of them, actually. I don't know either of their names, right? But there's this one guy that launches a little green men at you, and we saw these guys back in the first level too. The little green men, not their launcher mech dudes that, you know, shoot them. But the thing that I like so much about them is that they have a melee attack, where they just smack you into the stratosphere if you get too close to them. And I figure if I don't talk about it now, somebody else is gonna bring it up, but we also have these little walker guys. They die in one rig slam, so they're not even worth bringing up, really. What might act as a pleasantly surprise, if you noticed it only starting now, is that the shock troopers change their model every level, actually. And it's not the only change that they have, either. Shock troopers really only have 2 changes to their behavior when you're going through a level. When at a distance, they'll always fire some projectile at you. This projectile explodes, but what changes is the flight path of this projectile and the launch time depending on what level you're playing. So in Craterscape, for example, these skeleton shock troopers throw their head up into the air and hit it with their baseball bat. Long wind-up, but a fast travel time. It's just weird, neat little details that I'm a fan of like this. It's just cool. Yay, more flamethrower traps, and this time they're sliding. Oh god, please stop. And then hey, suddenly out of nowhere, it's boss fight time. Yes, this game has boss fights. Actual fights. Say hello to the avatar of my childhood fears. I have no explanation here. This guy doesn't have a name as far as I'm considered. Just one of the many tools of destruction used by Karn to take over the city. All I do know is that he freaked me out as a kid. Like, really, really bad. I'm actually pretty sure, now that I think about it, this level, this boss fight, was the reason I didn't replay Wild 9 more whenever I was younger. The way he rises from the ground, the way he screams, I don't know, something about it still just reignites those old memories for me in a certain way. And also, keeping up with the bad first impressions that Wild 9 loves to do for some reason, this boss fight sucks. Basically, all you have to do is dodge his various attacks. It's not that hard. Wait for him to drop a bomb, the dud is what you're looking for, grab that with the rig, and then slam it on his hand. Simple, easy, not a big deal. However, this fight just drags on for no good reason, and I don't know why. This first phase is fine, but for some reason, this boss fight, the first boss fight of the game, consists of 3 phases, like this is some final boss in another game. I do like the second time you meet him, though, he's still missing an arm, and he immediately starts the 3rd phase. This is weirdly funny to me. It just, like, it hangs on this screen with the fire still going for way too long, and then it just comes back. Like, oh wait, no, I'm not done. What are you talking about? A continuous nuisance you'll find through this level, starting after this first encounter, are these little flying ships.
Oh, that's what it is. I f***ing hate the feeling of unglazed clay. Like unglazed fired clay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like the feel of flower pots. Like too high grit.
Yeah. They have lasers that are tracing the floor here, and if you step into the line of the laser, they'll end up shooting machine gun fire at you. This will lock you in an animation where you take a bunch of damage depending on how long the gunfire has been on for. Like everything in this game that is even remotely puzzle-related, throw a grunt in front of them and just watch them get turned into Swiss cheese. Weirdly, I always had it in my head that this was like a one-shot move, because this game has some really, really mean level design with regards to things that can just insta-kill you, but no, it just does some damage, which works for me. What? Hi? Okay. What? I guess we're doing this now. So I genuinely have no idea what Pocket is doing here. He doesn't look trapped or anything, but, he's one of the coolest members of the Wild Nine because here he acts as a sub-weapon, a machine gun with infinite ammo. Picking this dude up at the end of Craterscape always felt like the just quintessential power trip for me. Get done with a freaky level that lasts way too long, that has a pretty long boss fight, and then all of a sudden it's all here you go, easy mode.
Infinite ammo.
Pocket is just a sad, lonely little guy that wants to be accepted. That's all he actually wants. He's another one of Karn's experiments that was the result of warping technology. Basically, as his name would entail, he has pockets that have infinite space, like multiple bags of holding in D&D or something. Ideally, this could mean that he pulls out anything, anytime anybody needs, well, anything else. Except for that never ends up being the case because of assumedly how much stuff he has in his pockets. So for this instance, I'm assuming he just got lucky with the machine gun and all the ammo he needed for it. Which, I mean, hey, sometimes things just work out. Good on you, little buddy. Let's get the hell out of here.
Here we go.
The freefall levels are fun. Simple, but really fun. The goal here is to get rid of all the enemies falling alongside you. As you continue along in the game, the other freefall levels will have more enemies in them, so for right now, this makes this a good introduction. Wex only really has a couple of options when he's in a freefall level though. Pressing X allows you to duck, which not only increases your speed so you can catch up with an enemy that's further ahead of you, but also braces you for impacts if you're about to run into something and can't move out of the way. Doesn't completely knock out the damage, but it's better than just, you know, landing on a pipe or something with your face. Landing on an enemy while you're ducking, though, will make it to where you can control them for a little bit. You can use this to steer them directly into objects, and doing this won't actually cause any damage to you. Bonus points for the very visceral sound an enemy makes when they smack into an object. Alternatively, you can press the square button when you're right next to an enemy to grab them and then throw them into a wall. If you want to get through these levels as fast as possible, you can start a throw chain by first grabbing the enemy, waiting about 1 second so that they can recover from the throw, and then immediately beeline to them with your arms open again. And then just repeat this over and over again until the enemy dies. And really, that's kind of it for the freefall levels. Even if you think they're kinda whatever, at the very least, they're visually interesting. Just when you thought the environment looked too samey, if there's another cluster of objects in your way, hey look, green pipes again, yay!
Come here. Come here. Come here. Your grandmama's mama.
But before I complete my thoughts on these freefall levels, let's go ahead and jump into the second jet bike level for a sec. Hey look, it's BoJack Horseman on space drugs. So we'll blow through this real quick because Quagmire Run really doesn't have anything all that different as opposed to Light Armada, and in fact, let's go ahead and talk about Light Armada again for a sec. One thing I neglected to mention about that level was that there might be a little inclination of world building here that isn't necessarily stated anywhere. If I may direct your attention to the background of this level, it looks like the travel lines between the worlds themselves are the same one that you see on the world map, so this is apparently canon by some measure. Now, because we also just got done with our first freefall level, I'm led to believe that these are sort of like personal superhighways in order to get from one planet to another without the use of a spaceship, which seems wildly dangerous. Maybe it's only intended for Karn's forces, but nonetheless, I think it's just something worth thinking about, that this is just an insane concept if any of this happens to be true. Game theories aside, let's go back to Quagmire Run. First things first, I am an idiot. There's nothing too different or notable about this level, like I said a minute ago. Only real thing here is that when you run into a tree, as opposed to the mining lasers in, the first jet bike level, instead of flying straight through it and setting yourself on fire, the trees will actually knock you hard left or right depending on where you landed on them. The reason I'm sort of punching myself here is because I didn't realize I started this level with 2 missiles. I was riding around in this level for like 10 minutes trying to find some, wondering why they weren't spawning, and it's because I was at the max you could carry. Which, big whoops, right? That does, however, lead me to say that the cool thing about the freefall and the jet bike levels is that the enemies are actually capable of damaging themselves by pure happenstance. I'm sure you've seen it in the footage already, but yeah, the enemies can run into environmental hazards here, and they'll take some of their health away. It's funny, it speeds up the process a little bit when going through these levels, and yes, in case you were wondering, I have had instances before where the enemies accidentally kill themselves by running into enough things. I was a very, very bad video game player when I was a child. I guess I'm not much better now, but, whatever. Alright, it's been long enough, let's go ahead and talk about Wex. Wex Major is a regular human being hailing from Earth. While we know nothing about his origins or his upbringing, we do know that for some reason or another, he ended up in the Andromeda Galaxy. Alongside this, he's also lost his parents, with their whereabouts currently unknown. After an impromptu formation of the Wild Nine, he also located the rig, and was surprised to find that he was the only one capable of operating the weapon. His ability to use the rig has resulted in many people of Andromeda calling him the Great Champion. So he's a part of some loose prophecy. He promises, after he saves his friends and destroys Karn, to one day return to Earth. If there was a singular, all-encompassing way to properly describe Wex, if you were to look into a dictionary or something and find the 90s definition of the word radical, there would probably be an accompanying picture of him there. Loud, reckless, and brave, he's realistically the galaxy's only hope. While we're here, I guess we can also talk about Angus a little bit. And yes, it's Angus, not B'angus. The B is silent. But don't ask. Angus is a weird, eccentric little creature that permanently resides in the rig. We don't know if he has the option to leave at any point, however we do know that he's pretty cowardly. When regarding his role in a team dynamic, he's the one many of the team turns to for consultation. He has a wide berth of knowledge regarding everything around and encompassing Andromeda. He's also apparently hiding from his arch-nemesis, the Black Sheep, who doesn't appear in-game, and other than this little bit of information, there's really nothing else I can say here. I'm wondering if Angus is somehow an integral part to the rig, or if he's just a stowaway. The answer to that question we'll likely never see, but it's fun to speculate on, I think. With the characters of our main duo now properly explained, I'd like to give a special thank you to Drench for being a level so unnoteworthy that it gave me time to talk about them. Drench is a swamp planet. No, it's not as bad as it sounds. The thing I should start off with saying here is that this planet is extremely dangerous. Thankfully, Shiny seemed to know this as well. There are missile refills and extra lives everywhere if you know where to look. The reason this level is so dangerous is because, with Wex wearing the rig, he can't swim with it on. That and the water is toxic anyway, so probably wouldn't last long after somehow getting out of it anyway. The way to traverse the water safely is similar to how the Gulag spike pits work. Throw an enemy into a body of water and they act as a platform. Understand, however, that the water is so much more dangerous than the spike pits because the moment you touch it, you start a drowning animation that you cannot escape from. Which doesn't really make any sense, but I mean, there was a band-aid fix in place here anyway, so who cares? Other things I can mention is, well, there's a new enemy, this annoying pterodactyl thing that likes to avoid your attacks. It swoops into the background in order to avoid you and then comes back down into the foreground, which is kind of annoying. And these trees that just smash anything that's in front of them. I don't know why they were born with violence in their veins, but sure. Or wait, trees don't have veins. Violence in their roots, yeah, let's go with that. I guess since we're doing a little bit of cleanup here, I should also mention that Wild 9 has sub-weapons. We've seen them before already technically, but the regular platforming levels make use of them too. We've already seen the exception with Pocket, right, and he's cool, arguably the best one, but we're not going to see him again, unfortunately. So what else do we have? First up is the grenade. I don't really like using this thing too much. It just works as a screen nuke. The moment you unleash it, the enemies start panicking. They're rendered a non-threat. They don't even have a collision hitbox to hurt you with anymore. Then after a set length of time, the grenade explodes and nukes the whole screen.
It's all good. I'm all power up.
It's fine, but I don't really see a point in using them because they don't make the platforming any easier, really. They're also the more rare of the two sub-weapons you come across anyway, and, you know, that just means you're gonna use them less, like, regardless. What are infinitely more useful are missiles again.
Like, cool.
To get it out of the way quickly, no, you will not see homing missiles in the platforming levels, because the regular missiles just home in on everything anyway. If you currently have 0 missiles, you will always start with 3. They also take care of shock troopers in a single hit, and they're sparsely used for puzzle solving when regarding heavy machinery that you can't necessarily get past by slamming somebody into them. The missiles are silly, easy to use, and Drench has a ton of them. Anytime I play this level, I'm literally running around with like around 10 at any given time. So feel free to use them. The shock troopers in Drench have an instant startup spear throw that still explodes when they hit you, and if they attack you while you're using a grapple point, you'll let go of the grapple and very likely end up drowning. So before any of that happens, just hit the shock trooper and be done with it immediately. Make sure to always have at least a couple of them on you though. There are tree turrets here that shoot the little green men at you, and if these hit you while you're grappling, you'll also fall off. So just, you know, have a couple, literally only a couple. 2 is all you need. Dog, really? Come on. It's Henry the aquatic biped. This formless liquid being controlling a metal exosuit is described as the most human member of the Wild 9. Being the ex-member of Karn's army, he used to play a role in some sort of biomechanical ship. I wonder if we'll see anything like that later. His new role in the Nines, however, is to be the chief science officer. And he's also pretty fascinated with human beings. He can't get over the fact that we have thumbs. For the remainder of the dredge level, you'll pilot Henry, riding on top of him in order to traverse the water safely. He doesn't have very much in the way of attacks, unfortunately. His only real action here is just jumping. Using the giant sharp spine that he has on his back, you can strike enemies in their unmentionables, which is kind of funny. Intermittently, you'll have to jump off of Henry in order to move him to another spot. It doesn't seem like he can walk anywhere, only swim, which sort of defeats the purpose of being bipedal, but sure. Bipedal, not bipedal. I did it again. Despite me getting one shot in the footage here the first time I mounted Henry, a horrible thing to say out of context, he's not, like, particularly fragile or anything. He shares the same health that you do. I just got really unlucky with how much health was remaining in my health bar when that enemy shot me. Although, that didn't stop me from being extra cautious in this water, because dying as Henry obviously means that Wex starts drowning immediately with no hope of saving himself. And yeah, that wraps up Henry. His segment isn't too terribly long, and I feel like if it was any longer, it would sort of outstay its welcome. What else do we have on the list here? Oh, it's another boss. And it's also a big weird frog. Sure, I guess. So, Filbert over here is a big can of worms, and not necessarily with his current incarnation. There's not really a whole lot I can say. The big box on his back is a battery that's supposed to augment his physical capabilities. It's not super interesting. However, a lot of these official artworks I've been getting from a website called bogleech.com. Long story short, it's a preservation website that shows a lot of the cutting room floor stuff regarding Wild 9, and it's really cool if you happen to like this game and want to know more about it. One of the things that they mention was Filbert actually joining the Wild 9 at some point, and Henry actually switching sides again. The language used during Filbert's segment actually seems like they already had a 50 episode series in the works by this point. I stole that line directly from the website, but it remains true, I think. Like, they had this whole franchise planned and everything, and it just didn't go anywhere. Probably because the game didn't sell all that well. If you want to check out the website for yourself, it'll be linked in the description as always. There's some really good stuff in here that I haven't necessarily mentioned yet, and don't necessarily plan to for this video. Wrapping back to the game, this boss fight is so easy, I don't even have time to explain it. Just throw the bombs back at him, it's fine. But wait, I said to myself, as I completed this voice line just a minute ago. How well did Wild 9 sell? What do you mean, 240,000 copies? Oh my god, I'm so sorry. This is, man, this is sad. So Wild 9 did not do very well, obviously. Shiny Entertainment seems to make a habit out of making games that only a handful of people really like, and everybody else just kind of ignores. This poor studio has changed hands so many times that they resemble the video game equivalent of a ship of Theseus. Let's look at the wiki for Shiny Entertainment for just a sec. Started as Shiny, right? Sold their studio to Interplay Productions, makes sense, they're the publisher, sure. Interplay then sold it to Infogrames. Infogrames, there we go. Then a company called Foundation 9 took it. Then it was merged with something called The Collective. I haven't heard of any of these names before becoming Double Helix Games. And that's not even the end of it, because Amazon bought them, and that's where we are today. What is happening? So Shiny obviously has a long and storied history, and I'm really just blowing past it as fast as possible here, because it doesn't technically interest me all that much, just like the crazy parts, right? I'll just come out and say real quick that a little bit of this video feels kind of like stolen valor, but for like nostalgia, right? Stolen nostalgia, because I didn't grow up with any other Shiny games, just Wild 9, and the circumstances surrounding that were really lucky in my case anyway. Since we're sort of retreading the intro for this video anyway, let's double back to the 1990s for a minute. Nintendo at the time was obviously still the top dog here. They more or less just got done saving the entirety of the video game scene after the initial video game crash of the 80s. So yeah, Nintendo was still king. And a lot of the newcomers to the video game scene obviously would try to dethrone them. Sony has been making this their singular mission practically since the PS1. And malicious rivalry is baked so deep in this company anyway that it's so well known in the game history books by this point, I would be retreading ground that plenty of other people have already tread. Games that come to mind when regarding Sony and them trying to be the next Mario or whatever you want to call it would be, you know, games like Crash Bandicoot or whatever. That's what most of the initial Crash Bandicoot commercials were about, but Shiny wanted a piece of this too, and the one and only commercial for Wild 9 shows them sort of making fun of the whole concept of just jumping on a dude in order to defeat them. Anytime you see mentions or allusions to it anywhere, you know what they're talking about.
A game where you jump on the guy and smash him with your butt! We need a game with cool weapons like this glove and this thing that has these powers. You get to pick bad guys and go. Then you get jerked them like donuts!
I found this promo video detailing a lot of the pre-production stuff regarding Wild 9 somewhere on YouTube as well, and it's really cool. Everybody seemed so excited and hopeful that this game was gonna do well. Man, it's like watching a train wreck moments before impact. Let me also just sidebar for a sec as well. Trying to find any information regarding this game has been ludicrously difficult. The end of the promotional video talks about www.wild9.com. Oh hey, a website. That should be useful for this video. The domain name, I had it. God. The domain name,
Domain name.
the domain name,
The domain name.
me. The domain name. Nah! Struggling. The website is for sale. That's all I had to say. Oh my god. Eventually, though, what I did end up finding painted a far clearer picture of everything regarding this game. The story of its development. And even to go back to opening up this segment again, even the sales figures I found by just, looking it up after looking for long enough. Google's useless AI bot told me that the sales figures were not publicly available, which, no, it says it right there. But sure, I guess, right? Everything regarding this game is just weird. I intended for this video to be much shorter, not do a whole bunch of research on it, but there was just nothing I could find by just playing the game. So here I am, I guess. I don't know what happened. One thing I didn't mention until now is that it turns out Karn stole all of these planets from other solar systems. I'm willing to bet all of these planets probably didn't belong to the Andromeda Galaxy. What an asshole. And developmental troubles and squandered potential aside, we have a really cool level coming up next, and I want to get to it as fast as possible. Let's talk Beast Engine, which is also the name of a really good chiptune song, by the way. There's no correlation, though. Just felt the need to mention that. Beast Engine is way cooler than it really has the right to be. Imagine being in the boardroom when this level was initially pitched. The idea is to run around a giant, dark, sprawling maze, finding individual MacGuffin pieces before you can leave the level. It sounds terrible, so why isn't it? Well, for that I can think of a couple reasons. One, very large one, mostly. Yes, you did see that right. That guy just peed himself, and then died. While our new friend here isn't necessarily a member of the Wild 9, I'm willing to bet there might be new applicants opening up soon. At least I would hope so, because he's pretty sick. While riding the beast, you have access to 2 attacks. A bite attack and a roar attack. Both attacks have the same damage, they one-shot anything you come across, so, not really much to differentiate them too much there. Other than the roar having a long startup time, that's pretty much it. But I will say, the roar does have better range, so there's that. While riding the beast, you don't have access to any of Wex's sub-weapons. You also can't use the rig either. He's also too big to fit in some areas, so you're gonna have to dismount him in order to get to, like, a switch or something. It's also worth noting that you don't necessarily get, more health or anything while you're on the beast. This is made particularly dangerous when considering the shock troopers in this level have a sort of bomb or grenade-esque head they throw at you, which means it travels in a pretty weird arc. Couple this with low ceilings, and yeah, it could be pretty hard to reach some of these enemies. It's all of these facts sort of put together that makes this level a tried and true endurance run. Don't worry though, if you're ever afraid of taking some unfair damage, just dismount the beast and use a rocket, because yes, this level still has too many rockets like Dredge. Speaking of this level, let's talk about the engine part of the Beast Engine. By which I mean, what engine part? It's pretty hard to gather what's going on in this level, sort of at all. It leaves a lot to the imagination, and by that I mean it leaves everything to the imagination. I don't know what any of this stuff is, other than it looks vaguely organic. Look, the floor makes a weird squishy noise when you step on it. Ew. Gross. My best guess here would be that this level is some sort of, power plant, possibly. Maybe a large-scale spaceship or something. Really, you could make any number of guesses, but those are just the ones that immediately came to mind that make the most sense. I don't know why it has to be partially made of an animal, but I mean, hey, sure, why not? Now, unfortunately, because of how weirdly gross and esoteric this level is, I can't really describe anything that's happening here. I mean, yeah, it looks cool, but I can't really tell what's happening all that much. And when you really boil the level down anyway, there's not really any set PC anything to talk about necessarily. But before I forget, let's go ahead and talk about the Wild 9 member of this level. For starters, here is his one and only appearance in the game, consisting of about 5 seconds. Yep, that's another lame member of Wild 9 tally mark. Mac Sheen, otherwise known as Mac for shorthand, is a boastful and cocky cyborg. He has the ability to turn into basically anything that the team needs at any given point. Outlined here in the manual, he's turned into things like a radar dish, a Gatling gun, or even a vehicle. Which naturally would have been cool to see, but oh well, I guess all the spotlight was taken up by the beast in this level. At least he fits in with the environment to some extent. I wonder if the rest of the members of Wild 9 were supposed to be like that anyway. Similarly fitting, he's apparently good friends with Volstagg, a similarly useless member of Wild 9 in terms of gameplay. I just thought that was kind of funny. I do like his design though. Sort of like a half-man, half-machine Fabio or something going on. It's fun, I like it. Question now is, how do we get out of here? Yeah, sorry, I missed my Beast driving lessons, I guess. Beast Ride is practically just a jet bike level, only without the missiles this time. You'll have to ride up to Colonel Crag in order to do any damage to him. While you're chasing him, he'll knock down cacti and stuff. Obviously, running into them is going to do some damage to you. It's pretty much it, though. While we have some time here, I do want to talk about the importance of Colonel Crag in terms of the wider encompassing story of Wild 9. The story goes, not long after Wex got stranded in this cluster, the Andromeda Galaxy, Crag was the one that captured him, having forces in tow. It's assumed by this point that Wex had already lost his parents, and Wex, being the cool titular hero guy, felt the need to stage a rebellion while everyone was captured on their prison trawler, Trawler 09. It would be the same vehicle that eventually ends up being the HQ for the Nines. And it would be this very event that starts the formation of the Wild 9. So it appears to me there is absolutely some history here between Crag and Wex. The Colonel felt so disgraced that he didn't end up reporting to Karn after the initial prison break, so he's been AWOL for who knows how long. And it's hard for me to register this information as anything other than a surprisingly tragic character. He's been just lost running around this desert for, again, who knows how long. His goal, seemingly, is to capture Wex again, collect the rig, and hopefully redeem himself in the eyes of Karn. And again, reading this information comes off as surprisingly compelling for how little is actually said in-game. If you're wondering where I got this information, again, it's the Bogleech website. I'll take the time to just shout that out once more, because the information here is really cool if you happen to really like Wild 9. There's a bunch of cutting room floor stuff on here, such as enemies that didn't appear in-game, but do have a presence in the wider lore surrounding Wild 9. And going even beyond that, if you just like the art style, then here's some of the original artwork. It's just cool. It's really cool. Hey, did you know Craig was supposed to have like a little robot dog buddy following him around? For some reason, they didn't think to have him riding it during the Beast Rides like level or anything, which is just weird. Instead, he's just running around at top speed in the middle of a desert. Sure, I guess. And now I don't really know if I have any proper way of ending this segment, so let's just go ahead and move on to the next level, I guess. So, at this point in the video, both you and I should have a pretty good idea of what Wild 9 was supposed to be. In a sense, the sort of jumping off point that was supposed to be like a paradigm shift for the company, something to that effect, right? While we could sit here and lament the current state of Wild 9, how much cooler this game could have been, this potential series could have been, what we did end up getting ended up being pretty cool. In the vein of other cool pre-production stuff, I did find this promo video for Wild 9, which was posted by Robert Wright over on YouTube. He's an audio and visual designer for Shiny Entertainment at the time, and luckily this promo video does show off some cool stuff that didn't show up in the actual game, but was planned obviously for its development. Along with a couple of minor changes, such as the jet bike being blue at first, most of the skyboxes and other level design elements being just less finished because go figure, there's also this one segment where it seems like you're using a jet bike over some water and carrying a box, which makes me think the jet bike was considered for an actual level element you would be able to freely pilot at some point. Like most things regarding the unfinished ideas of Wild 9, this is just another potential window for what this game could have eventually turned into if it was given proper spotlight. There's not like a ton to pick apart here, the video is only like a minute long anyway, but I figure I might as well bring it up just so that more people know about it. While I'm here, I'll also just put this on the table real quick too. The last thing I want for this video to be is some, like, heart on my sleeve type of thing saying, oh, I wish Wild 9 was resurrected in some way. We know it won't be, and I'm gonna make peace with that starting here and now. Would it have been cool to see a sequel game come out, or a series, or in any way a franchise coming from this game? Yeah, of course. But, I mean, I don't know, I think there is possibly a future here, but I'll save those thoughts till the end. On the bright side, what we have here is genuinely good, unique, and cool. Except for this upcoming level. Crystal Mine sucks. Yeah, that about sums up my reaction to this level. Crystal Mine has an escort quest in it. Don't worry, it is as bad as it sounds. On the bright side, it only takes up the last third or so of the level. And everything leading up to that point is thankfully pretty cool. It's been a minute since we had some real heavy machinery to throw dudes into, and because we're dealing with, you know, a mine, there's plenty of that here. In terms of these new giant enemies, whatever these guys are called, you can't grab them with the rig. 3 missiles is enough to take care of them, but typically speaking, they're gonna be in an area where you can use a giant crusher on them, so just use that, obviously. The shock troopers in this level are a little more interesting, if only because, for one, their projectile is this, like, acid thrower, flamethrower, not sure which obviously means it's not a typical projectile. Comes out instantly, which is a little bit annoying, but also, they like to sort of, like, attempt to stealth attack you. They'll hang off the side of ledges and then try to get the drop on you by, you know, jumping up behind you or whatever. It's a little different, it's kind of fun. What you might be quick to realize with Crystal Mine is that there are a lot of switches here. Like, possibly even too many. Not only can you move the giant press arms, but also you can move these little, like, controllable platform thingies. And I have words for these things and their spotty hit detection. But we'll talk about that later. In other news, I'm pretty sure this level's OST utilizes a talk box, if you know what that is. And actually, talking about the music of this level, it's kind of underrated to me, the only person that I know to have ever played this game. The whole OST is pretty good, like, really good. Honestly, I think its quality is almost suspiciously high for something made for the PS1. Like, I don't think the audio quality is supposed to be this high, if that makes any sense. But I mean, it's just, like, really good. There's a bit of a distinction that I like to talk about with my friends sometimes, where there's a difference between game OST and actual, like, music. Which isn't necessarily to immediately undermine, like, game OST or anything. It's just like game OST, you know, has a sort of intentional loop point so that the music can just, you know, continue to go without getting too samey or whatever. Whereas traditional music that's just made for like a song or whatever has like a start and a stop and these whole sweeping motions or anything. And this is more what I think Wild 9 likes to use. Can you tell that I don't have any music degrees? I could sit here and try to recommend you, go play Wild 9 or whatever, but let's be honest with ourselves, you probably won't unless you're a fan of this game and just randomly rediscovered it. But if this is the first time you are hearing of this game, then listen to its music. The OST is awesome. Except for the generic boss theme, that one kinda sucks. And now it's time for the wind to be taken out of my sails. Crystal is Wild 9's very own escort quest. She automatically starts walking to the right of the screen so long as light is currently covering her. She's primarily made of fragile crystal shards that will break under one hit, so you have to clear her a path in order for you to not lose a life here. A couple things that work for you in this section. 1, she's not very fast. 2, there are several instances in this level where you have lever-controlled lights, so you can directly control where she goes. If you're not properly prepared, or even if you are, prepared to lose a lot of lives here. With Crystal being made of literal glass, seemingly, obviously an enemy coming across her is gonna be a problem. But more so than that, these absolutely stupid platforms just don't function half the time. I have had both her and Wex clip through them and just have both of us falling to our deaths at one point. If she dies during any point in this level, Wex will do this absolutely shrill scream that just haunts my nightmares, genuinely. And on top of that, if there's any modicum of danger coming her way, she'll go, "Hurry, Wex," and it's just the most, oh my god, I hate it. Why is this so awful? Let it be known, this level is not supposed to be very long at all. This segment, even shorter. And I've brought up a point earlier in this video where this game can have some really, really rude deaths that can happen to you. Ones you wouldn't even really expect. Falling down a bottomless cliff is a pretty huge issue immediately because that'll just take a life away from you. If you're not operating off of save points or you don't have any extra lives lying around, this is gonna seem unfair. Although no, I do get it, this is just basic platforming stuff. Really not that weird to lose a life when you fall, right? However, what is surprisingly harrowing is enemy respawn points. Thanks, now I can't trust myself to be around those things whatsoever. And paradoxically, like I've also mentioned before, this game is weirdly accommodating when it comes to not screwing you over completely. It's like the game itself is sort of making fun of you in places, but it's not gonna have any unfair segments. For this example, if you walk too far ahead of Crystal and start activating this, rolling crusher guy, what you're supposed to do here is throw some grunts his way so that they can, be flattened by this guy. Obviously slowing him down so he doesn't catch up with Crystal. The cool thing though is that if you get rid of all the enemies, the crusher will just go back and forth and waste time for no reason. Like it's pre-scripted or something, so you actually don't have to worry about the crusher at all here. A fair question you might be having now is, well, what does Crystal actually do for Wild 9? Well, more than you would think, as it turns out. Crystal acts as the team's tactician and also something of a science geek, apparently. Her combat capabilities are supposedly pretty formidable, although, yeah, you could have fooled me. Also, her hair literally has a mind of its own, and apparently, when it's fighting, does, like, Bruce Lee battle cries and stuff, which sounds pretty fun. But okay, just pause for a sec. You mean to tell me that she's actually good at fighting and not just useless? My only rationale here is that the crystal mine itself is a very dark area. We know that she's given autonomy because of light. Likely based on some arbitrary light level, will give her more sense of locomotion versus others. So maybe artificial light will force her to simply just walk towards it as opposed to giving her full control over her body. In which case, okay, fair enough, I guess. Yeah, whatever. Just, can we get out of here now, please? So, we're getting pretty close to the end here. 3 more levels and a final boss fight at the end. That's all we got left. These 2 upcoming levels are going to have us sort of retreading the same ground, so let's do some cleanup while we're going through them. Outpost Balor. It's the game's second freefall level. First things first to get right off the bat here, the one and only type of enemy you'll be fighting in Balor are the Kaiser Grunts. If you don't remember these guys, it's because the last time we see them was in Bombopoilis. That obviously sucks because having an enemy where you had to, use them as a grapple point would have been cool, but it's just more missed opportunities, which is sort of the standard set by Wild 9 as it stands. The extra little gameplay wrinkle they add here is that they can actually block you and attack you with their propeller arm, but only on their right side, so just approach them from the left and you won't have any issues with them. What is far more dangerous is the level itself, though. Specifically, these arcing electric paths, I don't really know what to call these, do a ton of damage to you, and they sort of alternate on a clockwise activation basis. It's harder to explain than it is to actually visually look at, but you know what I'm talking about. Gotta say, absolutely adore the visual design of this space superhighway thing. Again, whatever these actually are. Going beyond the physical appearance of this level, though, there's something I do want to highlight here real quick. Wex remarks at this disco sign. He says, disco with a question mark. This doesn't seem like a particularly big deal or anything up until you consider that this is like a comedy bit in a video game that doesn't have hardly any voice acting and basically no dialogue. When I realized what he was saying for the first time, it genuinely got like a hearty chuckle out of me. I wish there was more stuff like this present in the game. Next level, Mach 9, jet bike level. As far as I'm considered, this is the only jet bike or freefall level where the enemy isn't actually capable of harming themselves on the level itself. Mantis Commander over here is apparently a pretty good pilot. Good for him, I guess. And because it wouldn't be a Wild 9 video without it, I'm just gonna expose y'all to Wex's probably most famous line. Yeah, that's probably the most 90s thing I'll ever hear in my entire life. But no Wild 9 video is complete without it. Sorry it took me so long to find this voice clip, I don't know why it had to be the last level. When concerning Wex and his voice actor credit, the only information I could find was that apparently Tommy Tellerico was the one that voiced him. If that really is the case, then wow, Tommy, I wish you would stop encroaching on my nostalgia for like 15 minutes, but given that Tommy is kind of a habitual liar anyway, allegedly for the last time, I'm gonna have to hit the doubt button on that one just because it doesn't say it in the game's credits or anything. Let's go ahead and finish this up. Mach 9 is by far the most chaotic out of all jet bike levels. There are glaciers positively everywhere. Stay on your toes, use your rockets, and just prioritize safety and defense over anything else. Remember that the enemies in the jet bike levels don't, like, fight back or anything, they just sort of run away. And that makes you control the pacing of these quote-unquote boss fights. Our time has somehow been long yet short with this game. Also, yes, in case you haven't noticed, the solar system is a giant 9 because of course it is. Let's get this done. Palace Karn. So what does Karn's palace actually have in store for us? Well, kind of a lot, believe it or not. Hey, that rhymed. I'm genuinely surprised this game doesn't really rehash anything. Even in the very last level, we're still seeing new stuff. These hooks you have to weigh down using a grunt so that it can lift a platform. These spikes which will cartoonishly stretch a grunt all the way across the gap so you can use them as a bridge. And several networks of cogwheels you have to shove an enemy into so that you can use them as an extended moving grapple point. And that's just in regards of the torturing your enemies portion of this level. There's a new, like, power-up kinda thingy here. They're just rig energy refills so that you don't run out of energy while you're using a grapple point. I'm glad they thought of this, and there's typically enough of them around that you don't have to worry about falling off of a grapple point or anything. Cool and convenient, and it even makes a unique noise. Yeah, it's just like a pitch-shifted menu selection noise, but it's cool, you know, hey, neat. On top of literally all of that, this level is broken up into 2 sections. Sort of like an upper catwalk portion, and then this craggy section filled with a little green men swamp. I haven't mentioned these guys all that much during this video, but understand they're practically the mascots for Wild 9. They're easy to get rid of, obviously. You just have to hit them with the rig once. If your rig does fire damage, they'll just immediately die, which is nice. Randomly throughout the bottom portion of this level, though, they'll jump out of the swamp to attack you. Thankfully, like I said, they only do 1 damage, so it's not that big of a problem. However, don't fall in the swamp. That is a much larger issue. That is an instant death. What's next here? Oh yeah, the music is awesome. If you haven't noticed it yet, it sounds an awful lot like Bombopoilis, and for the first half or so of the song, It is verbatim. However, whenever it gets to what I'm going to call the violin segment of the song, it sounds way more grand, more desperate, more final. And cutting off this thought before I start rambling again, I think it's pretty genius that they essentially used a remix of the first level song for the last level. What a perfect little bow. Great bookend. Oh god, I almost forgot one of our last members of Wild 9. Guess I should talk about him real quick. He doesn't appear in the game, his name is Pilfer. Here's a picture. We don't have anybody to save in this level, not yet anyway, we'll get to it. So let's just talk about him before I forget again. Pilfer is yet again one of Karn's experiments. He has some sort of multi-personality issue, 167 different personalities to be exact. He is actually definitively insane, the manual literally says it, and he's also the pilot for the Wild 9 ship. Pilfer works alongside Pocket and Henry in order to pilot the Trawler 09, the Wild 9's mobile base. You know, in case you forgot. And despite his absolutely bat disposition, at least he's a team player. He has a 9 carved in his head. And yeah, other than that, that's kind of it for Pilfer. Weird that he's the only member of Wild 9 we don't save, other than Wex and Angus, obviously. And naturally, if you don't have the manual, you don't know this guy exists, so hey, thanks manual. Let's shift gears here and talk about Pals Karn again. This is another one of those long levels, and given how this is the penultimate and or final level, depending on how you look at it, it kind of fits for being the longest level of the game. The shock troopers here, the last time I'm going to bring them up in this video, I promise, are the most dangerous they've ever been. They actually have 2 attacks this time, which is interesting. It's how you know they're elite, I guess. One of them being this rather standard rocket head attack, right? Only this time, the afterjet thing, the exhaust that comes out, I guess, will actually deal damage to you, so this projectile is deceptively big. In order to jump over a rocket here, you have to make a full bound basically all the way across the screen. More often than not, you're gonna be hit by these guys, especially if they use their standard attack. If you're a little bit further away though, they'll do this mortar salvo-esque attack, which seems like it's pretty dangerous, except for if there's a ceiling above them, the heads will just explode, so not a huge issue. I think you would actually prefer this attack if you see it, just because it's way less of a threat. Understand that I tried really, really hard to have 9 lives because I thought it would, you know, fit for this video. Unfortunately, that didn't end up being the case. Mostly because Pals Karn is, like, surprisingly hard. Yet again, another endurance level. And if the home of our main enemy is going to be this dangerous, I think it fits, if nothing else. Look, there's even a boss here, supposedly the leader of the little green evil men. He's not, like, all that special, though, or anything. Really, if anything, I think he specifically highlights a issue with this level. By which I mean, if you're gonna get through this thing as efficiently as possible, probably work up to get a red rig as soon as you can. The rig dealing a little bit of fire damage for whatever that might be worth, whether or not it's true trap fire damage or not, doesn't exactly matter, but I will say it's enough to kill the little guys in one hit. This boss here doesn't have, like, a name anywhere that I could find, but he spawns the LGEM constantly, like at all times. His window for vulnerability appears sporadically after he gets done summoning these enemies, so basically just hold the rig on him, especially if it's a red rig because, you know, max energy, and then just slam him into the floor a couple times. It's really not that hard. His perceived difficulty might be a little bit higher if only because he's at the end of this tremendously long level, but other than that, he's a non-issue. But after we get through this guy, we can finally get to the end of the game. Something I should have done a long time ago. Wex versus Karn. The final boss of Wild 9 is a whole can of worms, and I need to try my best to try to get my thoughts in order here, and it's not going to be easy. Starting down from no particular order in this list I have, he has a ton of attacks. He'll try to squash you like a bug, he has lasers, he'll try to shoot exploding little green men at you, and yet somehow despite all of that, it's all not enough for how long this boss fight actually is. I don't know what went wrong here, but man, the final boss of Wild 9 just drags on and on and on. Like, it's to the point where I can say with confidence, if you haven't mastered this fight yet during your first, run through of the boss fight, you will by the time it ends, because odds are you will die at least once. The primary problem here is that his damage vulnerability state just doesn't appear often enough. I feel like most games have it to where there's like a flag in place, right? Where an enemy does like one of their attacks, two of their attacks, maybe three, and then they do this one attack which leaves them open so you can actually do damage to them. That just wasn't implemented for Karn at all, and I don't know why. Instead, I feel like it's entirely random. What you're specifically looking for is an attack here where he tries to grab you. If you avoid it, he'll miss and throw out his other hand. If you don't know what to do here, you might be wondering, well, how do you actually deal damage to Karn? And if you are indeed asking me that question, let me ask you a question in return. How the f do you think this game wants you to deal damage to its final boss?
Would you look at that bad
Me figuring out that I needed to grab this guy with the rig was like undoing a 5,000-year seal on my nostalgia for a story I never finished, and it is the only redeeming quality to this boss fight. More rational people will just tell you that Karn is a pretty terrible boss fight, and that's completely fair. He is. I'm not gonna argue against that. But to me, in my specific instance, this weird set of circumstances that resulted in me playing this game again, this is perfect to me. And of course it would be the rig that actually gives you the chance to fight this guy, right? There's no sub-weapons or even any healing in this boss fight at all, and Karn's whole deal is to get the rig so he can take over the galaxy. It's sort of an ultimate weapon. It is a weapon that utilizes cartoon logic in order to throw anything and everything wherever you want it. Saves for some enemies in this game, but we're just gonna pretend that doesn't exist. And among the many things that would have definitely given me nightmares as a kid playing this game, Karn would have been one of them. Despite looking like the main antagonist in that one Spy Kids movie. You know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. George Lopez looking at... Also, before I forget, another thing that I totally forgot was another childhood trauma thing for me was the game over screen for this game. I don't have footage of it. I don't have time to get footage of it. Just look it up if you give a shit. I know you don't. It's fine. This boss fight has banter between all three characters that are present in it. Wex is obviously brave, talking his shit, right? Karn is appropriately scary and very supervillain-like, but who's the girl in his hand? Boomer McTwist is a titular love interest for Wex, because of course the 90s protagonist has a love interest, right? She possesses superhuman strength that she inherited from her father, who at this point is now very deceased. As a sort of badge of honor, she carries the kilt that he used to wear around her belt. Bit of fun fact information before we wrap up this very quick segment. Her main weapon is a quote-unquote staff, but it's just a log. It's just a whole tree. This boss fight is draining my life force. Like actively, like as I play it. But we're here now to get this done. To finally see things through to the end. And with the absolutely sick final boss music at our backs, why don't we put a pretty little bow on this whole thing? And that's it. That's Wild 9. I had never seen the ending to this game until literally just now. Or at least, you know, by the time I got this footage or whatever. Yet I can't say I'm all that surprised that it was just a short 30-second clip. So, what do I even say here, right? Wild 9 is a lot of things. It's kind of a mixed bag. Aspects of its design scream rushed development, or otherwise just studio crunch. It's a game that came and went, and that was pretty much it. Up until I started thinking about this particular video, there was a large part of me that was pretty sure this game was just a weird fever dream I had. In our current era of information and obscure video game knowledge, it's not like there hasn't been coverage of this game. And there is, of course, something pretty obvious I could call this game, other than the other names I've sort of rudely called it up until now, but I know you know what that is, and I'm saving that to the end so that I have a good, you know, closing statement for this video. Now, in terms of what legacy Wild 9 left behind, the question is, what legacy, really? There's no sequel game, there's no game that's ever been inspired by it, to my knowledge. We don't have in any form an animated series, and despite the plans for a possible franchise with this game, it just never happened. And normally, I would be pretty sad about it. The reason I'm not so much isn't because I secretly dislike this game or whatever. I don't. It is a big mess, but like I said, I grew up with this game, and coupled with my nostalgia, I also think it's just something I think that's worth looking at still. Nowadays, we live in an era where anything and everything can happen, especially with regards to creative projects. I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if, say, an indie developer had taken inspiration from Wild 9 and wanted to make a whole universe that was kinda like it. And I like this game enough to where I can say, that would be exactly my cup of tea. The ending of this video might seem somewhat sudden, especially if you watched any of my other stuff before, but I think I've said all that I could possibly say about Wild 9. About the only thing I hadn't included in some aspect was that yes, this game has cheat codes, but honestly I'm not going to go over them. What would be the point in that right now? I never used them as a kid, it'd be about the only game I didn't look up cheat codes for when I was younger, and for once I'm kinda glad I didn't. Somehow, despite everything this game has ever done, the ending was kinda perfect for me. Wild 9 is something kinda special, and I guess that's all I really have to say, so maybe now it's finally time to end this video. If you enjoyed what you saw today, then as always, interacting with this video in any way goes a long way for actually allowing this video to reach more people. As I said in the beginning of this thing, I don't plan to monetize it because I don't really have the ability to. All of Wild 9's OST has some surprising levels of copyright surrounding it, so you know, do the whole liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, blah 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 blah. If you got to this point in the video, why not type like hamburger or something just to know that you got here. Yeah, engagement bait, let's go that route. If you feel like showing some Christmas spirit once a month, then you can also join the Patreon, starting at $1 per month. Members of this wonderful Patreon, such as Stefan, Ari, and Pineapple Man, always get access to things like sneak peeks to videos before I get them done, early releases to videos as soon as they get finished, and allowing me to read their name out at the end of these videos. Hey, I just did that. How cool. And hey, if you want any proof that this game was in fact important to me, now you know why my name is Prince Mouse 9, and 9's my lucky number. And I have Wild 9 to thank for that. And yeah, I guess that's all I got. Wild 9 is weird. And as always, I'll see you Friday for something completely different. Have a good day, everybody.